Good morning, everybody. The Subcommittee on Economic Development, Public Buildings, and Emergency Management will come to order. The chair asks unanimous consent that I be authorized to declare a recess at any time during today's hearing without objection. So ordered. Chair also asks unanimous consent that members not on the subcommittee be permitted to sit with the subcommittee at today's hearing and ask questions without objection. So ordered. As a reminder, if members wish to insert a document into the record, please also email it to documentsti@mail.house.gov. Chair now recognizes himself for the purposes of an opening statement for 5 minutes. I'd like to thank our witnesses for being here today to discuss the role and effectiveness of the regional commissions for economic development in distressed communities across the country. Today, we will hear from 5 regional commissions: the Appalachian Regional Commission, the Delta Regional Authority, the Northern Border Regional Commission, the Southeast Crescent Regional Commission, and the Denali Commission. These regional commissions are set up to work in partnership with their member state governments to support economic development activities. In addition to these regional commissions, the United States Economic Development Administration, commonly known as the EDA, a bureau of the Commerce Department, plays a similar role nationwide. There are also programs through other federal departments that play some role in economic development, such as the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and the Small Business Administration. Now, I would just let you know, frankly, I don't really believe so much in the federal government's role in so-called economic development. That's my opinion. These programs simply allow the federal government to once more, in my opinion, pick winners and losers, and I hate to see the poor losers in that whole thing. Private investment and innovation should drive economic development. States and local governments should be positioning themselves to create pro-business environments through reducing regulatory hurdles and the cost of doing business, and that's how this country and this system was originally set up. On top of the duplication concerns that I have, these programs continue to proliferate and expand. For example, right now it seems that the argument for a new regional commission is that other geographic areas have them, so why can't our area have them? And you can certainly understand that. It just doesn't seem like much of a winning argument to me. Programs that started out focused on the basic needs of distressed community to attract jobs have expanded to include activities that don't seem really directly related to job production at all. I'm not blaming any of you. This place set this up, right? But it does mean that at the very least we should ensure that the activities you embark on and are funding are not duplicative, and we must ensure the funding is appropriately targeted and focused on truly distressed communities for activities that are directly related to attracting jobs and private investment, and just not used to backfill state and local budgets that don't want to, can't afford to do these things, or just don't want to pay for them, right? So that's the mission statement here. Notably, all of you received significant increases in supplemental funding in fiscal year FY 2021 under the IIJA, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. In some cases, 400% more than the annual appropriations, an important consideration as most of your agencies have authorizations that are expiring and are up for consideration. And I would just like to characterize in the remaining time, I've got a little bit left here, that I don't think that this is necessarily a partisan issue, although it's always kind of perceived as that, but presidents on both sides of the political spectrum have said these commissions are duplicative and should not exist, and that there are other agencies that are already doing this work, and we're spending that money, and what we're doing now is adding another layer for people to jump through, and so again, I don't think it's a partisan issue, but it's our job as members of Congress to perform the oversight function, and as you all know, I don't have to probably tell any of you, we've got a massive debt load in this country. We're gonna take in $5 trillion in revenue this year, and we're gonna spend 7.2. And that math just doesn't add up. I don't care where you live, which commission you represent or what community you live in, that doesn't add up, and that's not a recipe for success. So we've got to look at some ways to be efficient, and maybe the answer is to keep the commissions and get rid of everything else. I don't know. I imagine we'll have some kind of conversation about that today. But with that, I appreciate your traveling to Washington, D.C. and being here today for the hearing. And with that, I now recognize Ranking Member Titus for 5 minutes for her opening statement. I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me offer a counter position to that. I was thinking my district is Las Vegas, and Nevada is not covered by a regional economic development commission. I was thinking it'd be a good idea if we got one, but now I see my arguments are going to have to be strengthened other than just that. I haven't heard the chairman's comments on what he thinks about these. I, however, think they're a good thing, and thank you all for coming to share with us what you've done. And it's important to have this hearing because we haven't addressed this for several years. And you do economic development in very different ways depending on the area that you represent. You respond to what the needs are there, and oftentimes local governments, maybe they're rural counties or small communities, don't have the resources to do it themselves. So it makes sense that there's somebody else to bring together, to build up structure, to invest in things that we need to replace things that have been lost. You heard a little bit of a description, and I know y'all already know this, but just for the record, of the 8, there are 8 of these commissions. You 5 are here today. You're active, you're functioning, you're funded, and you're staffed. There's a 6th commission, the Southwest Border Regional Commission. It's in the process of organizing and hiring staff. Recently created, I believe last year, was the Great Lakes Authority, and it doesn't yet have a federal co-chair. I know Marcy Kapter has been working very hard to be sure that that exists and is up and running and gets appropriations. And then the authorization for the Northern Great Plains Regional Authority. You'll be glad to hear this lapsed at the end of 2018. Now, among those of you who are active, you've each received between $20 million and $200 million for the fiscal year of 2023 to support your different various economic development activities. And they range for a variety of good projects. You invest in basic infrastructure, energy, the environment and natural resources, workforce and business development, and entrepreneurship programs to help build that private sector to carry development into the future that we heard the chairman talking about. Although y'all are federally chartered and you receive congressional appropriations, you have a federal representative on the commission, but you're very much a cross-government type of agencies and work closely kind of as a liaison between the federal government and state and local governments. A lot of input from what local governments need. And this is kind of a unique way of doing economic development because you're place-based, you're cross-government, intergovernmental, multifaceted. You bring together a lot of good qualities to move our economy forward. I believe federal support is critical for regional economic development. For example, during the pandemic, Southern Nevada experienced 35% unemployment, the highest in the country because we're so tied to tourism and outdoor recreation. Airplanes were empty, hotels were empty, the Strip was closed down. It was like the Twilight Zone. So naturally that impacted employment, but also local businesses that were ancillary to gaming and tourism. I introduced the INVEST Act, which was part of the recovery provisions to try to help economic diversity and resiliency in all areas that are affected by, rely heavily on tourism and would be affected by a kind of a catastrophe like COVID was. Scarcity of water is a problem affecting the Southwest, and we need to keep consumption top of mind when we're investing or looking for new industry or new businesses to come to an area. That's a role that y'all could play. So you each do it in a very specific way to your area, whether you have to respond to closing down old factories, closing coal mines, loss of tourism, or climate impact. So I commend you for what you do. I think it's valuable, and I look forward to learning some lessons from you in case we do have one in our area at some point in the future. So thank you very much for being here. I yield back.
Chair thanks the gentlelady. Chair would now like to welcome our witnesses and thank them for being here today. The Honorable Gail Manchin from the Appalachian Regional Commission, the Honorable Corey Wiggins from the Delta Regional Authority, the Honorable Chris Saunders from the Northern Border Regional Commission, the Honorable Jennifer Clyburn Reed from the Southeast Crescent Regional Commission, and Mr. Garrett Boyle from the Denali Commission. Briefly, I'd like to take a moment to explain our lighting system to our witnesses. I don't know if you've been here before or not, so there are 3 lights in front of you with buttons associated with them. I guess you don't have the button. You have the button for the talk, right? For your talking, you got to push that button so we can hear you. But there are 3 lights in front of you. Green means go and keep going. Yellow means you're going to run out of time and maybe about a minute or so, so you want to be kind of thinking about wrapping it up. And red means you're kind of out of time, and we would hope that you would conclude your remarks. The chair now asks unanimous consent that the witness's full statement be included in the record without objection. So ordered. Chair asks unanimous consent that the record of today's hearing remain open until such time as our witnesses have provided answers to any questions that may be submitted to them in writing without objection. So ordered. Chair also asks unanimous consent that the record remain open for 15 days for any additional comments and for information submitted by members or witnesses to be included in the record for or of today's hearing without objection. So ordered. Now, given the number of witnesses here today, we are not able to invite all interest in this subject, so Chair asks unanimous consent to enter into the record written testimony submitted by David Ditch from the Heritage Foundation, Thomas Schatz from Citizens Against Government Waste, and Mark Jaffe from the Cato Institute. Without objection, so ordered. As your written testimony has been made part of the record, the subcommittee asks that you limit your oral remarks to 5 minutes. With that, Ms. Manchin, you are recognized for 5 minutes for your testimony, ma'am.
Thank you, and good morning. I am Gail Manchin, and very proud to be here representing the Appalachian Regional Commission as the federal co-chair. And since 1965, we have been reaching out to over 26 million people, helping them gain parity with the rest of American prosperity. And we have been grateful over the years for the bipartisan support from this committee that has enabled and empowered us to strengthen our initiatives, that we've been able to respond to the evolving needs of communities across Appalachia's 423 counties, 13 states that stretch from southern New York to northern Mississippi. We have already been authorized for 5 years in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and so this has positioned us to help Appalachia and seize opportunities moving forward. We, of course, are not seeking any amendments to our enabling legislation through the Appalachian Regional Development Act. It's important to note that the Appalachian region faces specific challenges: the isolating mountainous range, the dispersed population, the outdated or inadequate infrastructure, which includes broadband, water, sewer, roads, generational poverty, and the lack of capacity when it comes to applying for and receiving assistance from other funding opportunities. ARC provides an effective approach for addressing the region's unique challenges. Our flexible base funding program takes a bottoms-up approach, enabling local communities to tailor the federal assistance to their individual needs. But then ARC works in collaboration with the states as a partner to develop strategies from the local, state, federal levels so that we are meeting the priorities at each level and not coming from the top telling them how to do it. This bottom-up partnership approach ensures that the initiatives reflect local, state, and federal partnership. And we believe that the base funding, which gives a formula allocated amount to each state, allows governors too to have a voice in funding opportunities. In addition to the base program, ARC funds several grant initiatives that are having transformative impacts across our Appalachian region. This includes our Power Initiative, which responds to job losses specifically due to coal-impacted communities with the downturn of coal in those areas. The Appalachian region has disproportionately suffered a major shift as the coal industry went down. Over 70% of coal mining jobs lost in the United States from 2011 to 2022 were in the Appalachian region, leading to a loss of more than 34,000 direct mining jobs. Up to this time, ARC has invested more than $420 million into 507 projects since Power was established. The Appalachian region also continues to be disproportionately affected by the opioid epidemic. And so in 2018, we formed listening committees, we focus groups, we studied and researched, and as a result, we launched the Inspire Grant, which is a recovery to work initiative. So training not only the recovery, but giving support across for nearly, in this investment, we have given $42 million across 126 Aspire projects. And then last year, we launched our Arise, which is a multi-state initiative to give greater impact as we respond to the challenges as a region rather than as 13 individual states. And then through Ready Appalachia, we have offered capacity training to build our local leaders and our nonprofits in a way that can strengthen their capacity in writing for grants, strategizing, and planning for projects in their communities. So we have undeniably seen progress in our region, but highways have always been a key component. But in addition to the concrete highways, we now find that the broadband highway is another challenge in our mountainous, isolated areas. So we continue to work to meet the challenges, targeting our investments. We are a part of the White House Interagency Working Group on Coal and Power Plant Communities, where we serve as a major member of that committee, working in tandem with other federal agencies, so not to duplicate, but to complement one another in the funding that we are able to put forth through these coal-impacted areas. Our programs continue to work. They continue to thrive. We look forward to hosting a time when the Appalachian regional communities will not just thrive or survive, but they will actually be able to compete with the rest of the country in their efforts. And then we will know that we have reached parity. So I thank you for this opportunity to speak before you and look forward to answering any questions that you may have that come up before us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Manchins. And Dr. Wiggins, you are recognized for 5 minutes for your testimony.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Dr. Corey Wiggins. I have served as the federal co-chairman of Delta Regional Authority. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share with you the important work of the Delta Regional Authority. Since its establishment in 2000, the DRA's purpose has remained unchanged: to promote and encourage economic development in the DRA region. DRA's financial assistance programs provide targeted investments in the 252 counties and parishes across our 8-state region. That includes parts of Alabama, Arkansas, Illinois, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, and Tennessee. While home to 10 million residents, the DRA region is among the most economically distressed parts of the United States. The DRA invests in a broad range of initiatives that support four overarching goals, including investing in public infrastructure, developing the local workforce, promoting business growth and entrepreneurship, and supporting sustainable communities. Some highlights of DRA programs and their impacts include, from 2017 to 2022, project investments in the state's Economic Development Assistance Program, our partnership program with our governors, resulted in over 500,000 families affected by infrastructure programs, more than 160,000 individuals trained in workforce development programs, and approximately 35,000 jobs created or retained in the region. Since 2017, our Community Infrastructure Fund, which supports basic public infrastructure investments, resulted in more than 290,000 families affected by improved infrastructure projects, about 1,500 individuals trained in workforce programming, and over 8,000 jobs created or retained in the region. DRA invested a total of over $46 million in funding in the DRA region in fiscal year 2022. The expected impact of this funding from nearly 110 projects in the region includes nearly 42,000 families affected via improved infrastructure, over 1,800 jobs created or retained, and over 1,200 individuals trained. As DRA continues to assess its fiscal year 2023 project and impact data, some highlighted regional investments include DRA awarded $11.7 million in investments to 28 projects in the region through our Delta Workforce Program. DRA also awarded over $600,000 to 5 communities in Illinois, Louisiana, and Missouri in its first round of funding through the Strategic Planning Grant Program, a new initiative to support capacity building in the region. Every 5 years, the DRA, by statute, is responsible for creating a regional development plan with public input that is approved by our governors. In February 2023, the authority approved and released Navigating the Currents of Opportunity, DRA Regional Development Plan 4. Our strategic goals for the next 5 years include: DRA will expand and invest in the resiliency of the region's public infrastructure to improve residents' quality of life and increase economic opportunity. We will improve the networks of agencies, organizations, businesses, and educational institutions providing workforce development opportunities. We will strengthen the competitiveness of the region's employers, attract new employers to the region, and support the long-term growth of micro and small businesses. We will expand our efforts to enhance and sustainable and inclusive local placemaking, quality of life, and community capacity. DRA has pursued its vision of the region as a place where people and businesses have access to economic opportunities and vibrant, sustainable, and resilient communities. One of DRA's legislative priorities include reauthorization of the agency, which has been included in the Farm Bill in the past. It is vitally important that the agency continues to exist and provide critical resources to the heart of America. Additionally, the agency requests appropriations language to amend DRA's authorizing statute to remove Section 328N of the Delta Regional Authority Act of 2000, thereby deleting or removing DRA's sunset language. DRA and its sister commissions serve a distinguished purpose and uniquely critical role within each of our regions. Our impact in the region is not just limited to the quantitative outputs from the agency investments, but is also connected to DRA's reputation as a regional partner working closely with local governments and local development districts to help find solutions to the challenges experienced in the region. It is critical that DRA remains a vital partner in the region to foster inclusive communities, strengthen regional collaboration, achieve sustained long-term economic development, and produce meaningful opportunities for all people in the DRA region. Again, thank you for allowing me to speak today and look forward to a continued conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Wiggins. Mr. Sanders, you are recognized for 5 minutes for your testimony.
Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Titus, members of the subcommittee, thank you for the invitation to appear before you today to discuss the impactful work of the Northern Border Regional Commission. This fall marks the 15th anniversary of the creation of our commission by Congress as part of the 2008 Farm Bill. And thanks to the continued investment and support of Congress NBRC has quickly matured into a significant contributor to the economic development ecosystem in the Northern Border region. As the NBRC was modeled on the Appalachian Regional Commission and the Delta Regional Authority, it should come as no surprise that everything the Commission does is rooted in partnership. We bring together the federal government and the leadership of our member states to utilize a regional lens to invest public dollars in local communities. This model doesn't just invite collaboration, but requires it. We believe the ways in which we put this model into practice, we are fulfilling the vision laid out by Congress to serve as an integrator of resources and a collaborator between all levels of government. The Commission is staffed by a dedicated team of professionals who live and work in the communities they serve and apply their knowledge and experience to shape the Commission's programs and operations. Guiding this work is a vision that, at its core, the mission of the NBRC is to build vibrant rural communities and provide for the well-being of the residents that live there. We put this vision into practice in a variety of different ways, such as centering the needs of rural communities. The Regional Commission model is designed around the origination of projects at the local level. And we're pleased to share that in our latest grant round, of the 66 awards made, more than half were made to communities under 5,000 people. And just under half were made to communities that were first-time applicants to NBRC. We embrace the drivers of regional and local economies. The core of our territory is shaped by an ecological zone that's known as the Northern Forest. And that forest has experienced significant disruptions over the past 3 decades. And supporting the communities as they determine what the future of a forest economy means to them is a cornerstone of the Commission's work. In some communities, this has meant supporting innovation in the wood products industry, while helping others to diversify their economies by investing in outdoor recreation infrastructure. As you've heard from my peers, many of our rural communities need significant investment in infrastructure. And I'm pleased to share that as part of our Catalyst Awards this summer, which is in part funded by the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, 50% of our awards were made to projects classified as infrastructure. We know that NBRC is very effective at leveraging other sources of funding. The Commission has a strong track record of supporting projects that incorporate other funding sources. In fact, it's required in our project awards. And in this most recent round, our funds were matched at a nearly 1-to-4 ratio, turning $40 million of federal investment into a total investment of $200 million across the region. NBRC is also addressing the capacity gap in rural areas. A limiting factor on many of our small communities to participate in federal grant programs is a lack of access to capacity, namely people and organizations who play a critical role in the planning, development, and execution of economic development initiatives. The Commission operates a state capacity program as authorized in statute that builds human capacity at the statewide level and at local organizations and technical assistance providers. Similar to ARC and DRA, we're responsive to emerging needs. The Commission evaluates what role it should play in addressing obstacles that limit economic opportunity in rural areas. And increasingly, housing and access to health care have emerged as barriers to growth. We are actively considering how best to leverage our resources in order to complement and not replicate the work of other agencies in this area. Each of these points illustrates a way in which the Commission is maximizing its unique structure as a regional agency to the benefit of rural areas. As I've noted, all our work is rooted in partnership, and we see Congress as a key collaborator in determining the Commission's priorities. Earlier this year, a bipartisan group of representatives introduced H.R. 4188, the Northern Border Regional Commission Reauthorization Act, and this bill has been co-sponsored by nearly every member of Congress from districts representing counties included in the Commission territory. We appreciate the work that has gone into drafting this legislation and its companion bill in the Senate. We look forward to working with Congress, and I'm pleased to answer questions regarding the Commission's work to better our region. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Dr. Reed, you are recognized for 5 minutes for your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Titus, committee members, and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of the Southeast Crescent Regional Commission since being activated in January of 2022. I also want to thank the members of Congress and President Biden for their confidence and support for this region. There is an abundance of greatness and potential here. Many thanks to the members of Congress who have met with me over the past 22 months and offered support to SCRC as we create and formalize policies and procedures to meet the needs of its 51 million residents and generate jobs and opportunities within the 428 counties spanning over 210,000 square miles. The region consists of 7 states, portions of Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and the whole state of Florida. Currently, it is the largest of all the active regional commissions. I have much appreciation for State Co-Chair Governor Henry McMaster and the other governors, governors alternates, program managers, and staff who have shown and continue to show their support and commitment to SCRC. 2 years ago, I sat before the Senate Committee on the Environment and Public Works as a nominee. At that time, I identified goals which included assessing the needs of each community, naming regional challenges, and determining the tools needed to transition counties from a distressed economic designation. Today, I'll share what I've learned and how SCRC is progressing. Upon establishing the commission, we worked to develop an initial set of bylaws. A 7-state survey was disseminated with questions that centered around what will make you love where you live. We hosted virtual coffee and conversations in each state to introduce SCRC and to glean a better understanding of each state's needs. SCRC also held collaboration sessions to hear how regional stakeholders thought economic growth, development, and sustainability should look. Information from these efforts led to the formation of SCRC's 5-year strategic plan. Additionally, partner states created state economic development plans, which illuminated each governor's priorities. Feedback from the information gathering efforts revealed 6 overarching goals: invest in critical infrastructure, improve health access and outcomes, strengthen workforce capacity, foster entrepreneurial and business development, expand affordable housing stock and access, and promote environmental conservation and preservation. During that hearing 2 years ago, Senator Carper suggested that I find what works and do more of that. SCRC commissioned a 3-part health assessment to address gaps in healthcare needs and access. Nationally, 76 rural hospital closures have been reported between 2011 and 2021. Nearly 20% occurred within the Southeast Crescent region. When preparing for the start of the flagship grant program, SCRC formalized cooperative agreements with all participating states and the 55 local development districts to strengthen economic development and sustainability. In June, SCRC launched its inaugural State Economic Development and Infrastructure Grant Program, and the pre-application phase is now complete. 363 pre-applications totaling $119 million were submitted and are now under review. $20 million will be spent on these worthwhile projects. The large number of projects that SCRC cannot fund this year shows the high demand for economic development and infrastructure investment. I look forward to working with Congress on H.R. 5899, a bipartisan bill to reauthorize the commission. SCRC is committed to building sustainable communities and fortifying economic growth in its 428 counties. We look forward to building partnerships with local, state, and other federal entities to ensure a prosperous future for all who call the Southeast Crescent region home. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. Mr. Boyle, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Titus, and honorable members of the committee. Thank you for inviting me to testify and providing this opportunity to present the Denali Commission's perspective. We are unique among the other regional commissions as we operate solely in Alaska. While While this may seem like a narrow focus, I assure you it is not. Alaska has a population of just over 730,000 people spread out over more than 571,000 square miles of land area, which makes the state larger than Texas, California, and Montana combined, and leaves us with a population density of about 1.27 people per square mile. Alaska has about 160 municipalities, ranging in size from about 20 to around 300,000. Of these municipalities, 86% are not connected to the road system, which means everything the community needs is either barged or flown in, significantly driving up costs and logistical problems. About 80% of these municipalities are considered rural, meaning a population of less than 1,500. Slightly more than 50% have less than 500 residents, 13% less than 100. Only 6 have more than 30,000 residents. Many of those smaller communities do not have much in the way of a cash economy. Many who live there still follow a traditional lifestyle. The municipality often does not have tax authority, and there's not much to tax even if it did. The infrastructure base is frequently decades behind most of the country. I share this information with the committee to illustrate the challenges of promoting economic development in the rural parts of Alaska, which is where the Denali Commission does the majority of its work. We aim to address the challenges presented by Alaska's geography and low population in a holistic way. To begin, many villages are powered exclusively by diesel generators. The cost of electricity, averages 47 cents per kilowatt hour in rural communities, but it ranges from a high of $1.50 to a low of about 37 cents. As a point of comparison, the Bureau of Labor Statistics states the average cost of power here in the DMV area is 16.2 cents per kilowatt hour. It is incredibly hard to have an economy when power costs that much. We fund a wide array of energy projects, from new powerhouses, bulk fuel tank farms, and increasingly renewables, in order to bring those costs down. We engage in efforts to bring broadband to these areas to provide more economic opportunities. Several years ago, the Commission started working groups to raise awareness and encourage stakeholders to consider a statewide strategy. This outreach resulted in technical assistance grants in 8 regions supporting planning, engineering, strategy, and applications to larger grant opportunities. As a specific example, the Commission's grant to the Tanana Chiefs Conference, which is a tribal organization representing 42 tribes in the interior, resulted in 3 winning grants from different programs for over $90 million in investment. We also have direct economic development efforts. Last year, we partnered with the Southeast Conference, a regional economic development organization, and pledged $1.5 million in non-federal match to their Build Back Better Regional Challenge application, which resulted in a $49 million award to the Alaska Mariculture Cluster. This award will help grow the mariculture industry to a target of $325 million per year, supporting 1,800 jobs across the state from Ketchikan in the southeast to Unalaska, far out the Aleutian chain in the southwest in 20 years. Finally, the Village Infrastructure Protection Program has been working with tribal, local, regional, state, and federal partners to support the resilience of Alaskan communities. We have funded the planning, partnership, and construction efforts to move communities to safer environments, while also protecting communities in place and assisting in managed retreats. One project has used our funding to leverage additional support and generate more opportunity for Alaskan communities. Our partnership with the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium's Center for Environmentally Threatened Communities, which I will call CETC for short, began in 2016. Recognizing the value in this partnership, the Commission has increased the awards over the years. Since program inception and June 30th, 2023, the CETC has provided technical assistance to 39 communities and secured $43 million across 133 projects to benefit 44 different communities. The Commission is proud of our work to improve the lives of Alaskans, especially those in rural communities. We look forward to working with your committee, and we would welcome a discussion about potential legislative changes that can strengthen the work of the Commission. Thank you for convening this hearing, and I welcome your questions.
Well, thank you all. The chair does thank you for your testimony, and we will now turn to questions for our witnesses. The chair recognizes himself for 5 minutes for questions. I think there's a reasonable claim to be made that regional commissions do duplicative work at multiple levels of government. There are state and local programs for almost everything, and I'm not going to read through all of it because that would spend all the time, but we got the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, Federal Emergency Management Agency, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, U.S. Small Business Administration, U.S. Department of Education, Department of Labor, Department of Health and Human Service, Department of Energy, Department of Commerce, Department of Transportation, Department of Agriculture, and a panoply of programs in all of those agencies that do exactly what you do, and yet you do it too. You know, it's just inefficient. Let me ask you this, Ms. Manchin. I am close to the Appalachian Regional Commission geographically. It's not in the district that I represent. It is adjacent to it. I'm looking at a map here, and I'm sure you're probably familiar, right, with the map. So if I look at that, all the white area is counties that aren't included. The gray areas are attainment counties. So, what, 58 years this has been going on? I see three attainment areas. This is a map as of 2023. Everybody to see here. I mean, for 58 years, we've got attainment of 3 counties here. What's the cost over the 58 years for the Appalachian Regional Commission? Can you tell us that?
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate you. You know, we do look at that. I've lived in the Appalachian region all of my life, and so I have seen the isolation and the poverty that is there. And so we have been on a mission of building the highway system since 1965, and we are now about 91% complete on that. Building highways through the mountains is not an easy task, and it also takes cooperation with the states and funding that comes from several different arenas.
Did you say 95% complete?
91.
91. So if you're 91% complete since 1965, do we have to wait till we're 100% complete in building the highways before we see any of these counties go from attainment to anything better than attainment?
Well, certainly. I mean, Corridor H that comes from Washington across and comes into the Eastern Panhandle or West Virginia is one of the latest, Corridor H, and we
I'm
are
familiar with it.
working on that, but it takes, this is a series of years. You don't build the highway.
No, I get it.
In
I
a
mean,
year.
but we're talking about an area that's right here. But we got this whole thing right here. Some of this is dark red or black, almost distressed. 1, 2, 3 counties, one in Virginia, one in Georgia, one in Alabama. We're not, so if you're 95% or 91% complete.
That's through the entire, from southern New York.
Yeah, so why aren't we seeing more counties meet attainment? I mean, it's been 58 years, and with all due respect, I know you haven't been there for 58 years, but
Well,
this is costly to the American people.
because you build the highways, and then you have the impact of when coal goes up and when then coal went down, and 70% of the
Okay.
jobs lost.
Fair
you notice,
enough.
Our
You know,
highest distressed counties are through southern West Virginia and eastern Kentucky.
so just to be clear here, in my opinion, the coal industry has been destroyed by the federal government. It just didn't go away on its own. It's been destroyed by the federal government. And if the federal government was so concerned about the Appalachian region, maybe they should have thought about that before they destroyed the economic vitality, maybe what little there was or is in the Appalachian region. But they did that. That having been said, I'm looking at, this is the Appalachian Regional Commission, the city of Takako, Georgia, the Ritz Theater Annex. $750,000 to include the expanded lobby, concession stand, merchandising stand, bathroom storage, ticketing, balcony access, and more. Now, I don't know if that county is the one county in Georgia that has reached attainment, but it doesn't seem to me where that money went for building a highway. And you know, God bless them, I'm sure they love their theater. I've got a theater that I represent in Middletown that we would love to have kept open because it was historic, but nobody could afford to keep it. We spent a boatload of money on the one in New Cumberland, Pennsylvania. We did it. We didn't ask people from California, New York, and Florida to do it. We did it. These are state and local issues. These are not federal issues, and how do we justify? And I don't mean to pick on you, ma'am. I mean, I can go through a list here. We've got, in the northern border region, the replacement of a double chairlift to upgrade and to upgrade existing snowmaking infrastructure. How about purchase of a trail groomer and a mogul master drag? I live within eyesight of a ski resort where I live, and I'm sure they would love to have the federal government pay for their snowmaking, their chairlift, and their new snow machinery. I'm sure they would love it. And then in the Denali Commission, a bike and pedestrian path. It's wonderful, I'm sure. It's not a federal responsibility. Or how about the development of an art studio? Again, building a visitor and retail center. I'm sure they're all wonderful. These aren't things that we should be paying for at the federal level. These are local issues, ma'am. Let me just ask you this. Can you tell me, if you know, how much of the commission's budget goes to pay for salaries and other administrative costs and operating, and how much of your budget is directed to actual programming?
Yes, when grants are presented to us, that is all in it. We have third-party evaluators that evaluate all the programs and initiatives that we have. So that we ask for impact, how many jobs are going to be created, what is the impact on communities, and...
Do you have a number? Do we have a percentage? What's the metric there?
Well, different. The Power grants, the Inspire grants are all designed a little differently to address different needs. But what we have found through our third-party evaluators is that the money that have been invested in these communities have reached or exceeded the expectations of what that grant was to do.
And
So
where
we're
is that?
talking about bringing in the 21st century, we're still bringing clean drinking water into these communities.
I understand, ma'am, but I'm looking for a metric by which we can measure your success, and I don't see any. And even the IG, especially for the Denali Commission, Mr. Boyle, has said that of the mass amount of money that has been spent there, a very, very small percentage has been reviewed under the Inspector General. And so almost literally, no one is looking at any of this. Do any of you have a standard set of metrics by which you measure your success? And I'm not meaning to be pejorative here, but we created you, I get it, but this is taxpayer money, and you would think you're all high-powered people that are well-connected. You should be able to come up, you're working together, you're working with other agencies. Is there any metric by which all of you measure your success? Anybody?
Yes, well, we do have measures, and we do have an Inspector General over our commission that works every year with reports. So,
Well, his comments are not very
have
flattering,
numbers.
but my time has expired, and now I would yield. No, I would yield to the gentlelady from Nevada.
Thank you. I think I heard, maybe it was you, Dr. Wiggins, who said that for every dollar you spend, you get back, would you tell us that statistic again? Oh, was it you, Mr. Sanders? I'm sorry.
That's correct. I was citing
That's
a
a
figure
metric.
from our last grant round that for every dollar, a federal dollar that's invested, there's a total of $4 that goes to a project that's leveraging other sources of funding.
Yeah, so that would be a metric of success, that you can take some federal dollars and use it to leverage with it. Maybe it's a private investment, maybe it's a state match, that sort of thing. So wouldn't that be a metric to show success?
Absolutely. And we are asked to measure indicators of distress and target our resources. Congress asks us to award at least 50% of our resources at the Northern Border Regional Commission to distressed communities, and we routinely meet and exceed that target, as well as our targets around infrastructure investment and other metrics that Congress has put in place to say, this is how we believe we should guide the dollars flowing to your communities.
And Ms. Manchin, you were talking about how many jobs were lost from the coal industry. Can you address how your workforce development programs may have brought back some of those jobs? There'd be a metric of success.
Yes, all of our grants, whether they are Power Grants, Inspire, or the multi-state grants, all are around economic development, economic vitality. But then that spans a large region. Are we talking about education that's going to strengthen, and training programs for industry that's coming in? The Appalachian region is seeing a lot of industry re-entering the region, the automotive industry, and so training for that.
Don't you do reports at the end of the year of how many new businesses you've attracted, or how many new people you've hired, or how many have gone through the workforce development program? Don't y'all all do that? Those are all the metrics of success, I would say, or measurements of what your accomplishments are. You just don't have time to hit on every single one of them. I'm sure you do them, Dr. Reed. Don't you do them in the Southeast?
Yes, thank you for the question. And while we're in our first round of grant making, we have developed targeted impact measures to evaluate the efforts of the investments. And these include jobs created and jobs retained. So I look forward to coming back next year and giving you an update on where we stand with that.
And don't all the commissions leverage that federal money? Because you work closely with local governments. I'm sure that's not all you have and all you spend, that you can use it to, you water the green spots sometimes. Is that kind of what you do? You know, just isn't a question to any of you, but listening to you and hearing some of the dates you have to get reauthorized to exist, reauthorize the money, don't know how much money you're going to get. I've always heard from business that the main thing they need is stability and predictability. And if you are subject to political whims, that makes it very hard to do good investment, I would think. Maybe y'all could address that. That doesn't mean you don't have to justify what the money you're getting and how you're spending it for taxpayers. But if you kind of knew you were going to be in existence and basically have minimum how much you were going to have, wouldn't that make the investment easier and better for leverage? Mr. Boyle?
Well, I think, just to be very specific, we are in partnership. We match money.
Okay.
So any grant that comes from the ARC has started at the local level, is matched by state money, and then we come in as the third element. We don't come in with a check to pass out to people to say, you know, build it and they will come. They create, and we're the third partner. So it's a bottom-up approach. So if a grant comes to us for funding, for match, it's because the state, the governor, and the local communities of that state has actually
Already invested.
researched and worked on that.
Yeah, you want to add that, Mr. Boyle?
I'm sorry, could I ask you to repeat that question?
Well, I've
lost track
forgotten it
of
myself by now, but no, I was just saying that if you had some stability and knowing that you were going to be around next year and not subject to political whims, wouldn't it be easier to invest and leverage the federal dollars that you get?
Yeah, I think it certainly would. Allowing communities to know that we're going to be around for years as opposed to we might be gone next year would make it a lot easier for us to plan how to invest.
And you can go through a list and pick out a theater there and a ski lift here and all, and it makes a kind of cute list of calling out these things, kind of like the Proxmire Award. But in reality, if you put those in context, those may have a big impact on a community. You know, that may be a historic area, may bring back business, may revitalize a downtown area. You got to put it in context. You can't just pick and choose like, you know, they're like the list that the chairman gave out. Mr. Wiggins, Dr. Wiggins, you hadn't weighed in.
Well, no, to your point, I mean, we actively work to make sure that our investments are aligned with our statutory purpose. You know, one of the unique opportunities we have because we do partner with our states, we regularly are engaging with our state members and having conversation and better understanding the needs of the community. So to your point, making sure that our investments are aligned to our purpose and having the type of impact around job creation, how we improve infrastructure in the communities, and really trying to make sure that we have workforce development programs that are training people to be able to get into family-sustaining jobs.
Thank you. I have yield back. Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentlelady. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Ezell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for the active commissions that are here today. I really appreciate it. I want to note that all the work that the Delta Regional Authority and the Appalachian Regional Commission have done in facilitating projects in my state of Mississippi. Since Dr. Reed, since the SCRC covers my district in South Mississippi, I want to ask you a question here. The Southeast Crescent Regional Commission, SCRC, was founded in 2008 and began receiving funds in 2010. The SCRC did not have a federal co-chair until you became the first one, and congratulations, in 2021. If a federal co-chair is not appointed, regional commissions cannot expect to expend the funds. However, before your arrival, the SCRC received annual appropriations totaling $2.75 million. Can you elaborate on how these funds were used?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. The accumulated funds over that time was put into the appropriations being used now for the grant making. So it is included in that $20 million that we will grant forward through this first grant cycle.
Thank you. As previously stated, the DRA and the ARC have been successful in partnering with counties to accomplish projects in Mississippi. Since your appointment, what has the SCRC done outreach-wise to prepare counties for receiving federal grant dollars?
Thank you very much. We have garnered cooperative agreements with every local development district in participating states, and there are 55 of them. We have also enacted cooperative agreements with the states. So we have a layered support system to make sure that the entities applying for grants are ready to receive those funds.
Very good. Lastly, each regional commission categorizes counties based generally on economic indicators such as per capita income and unemployment rates. The counties that have the lowest per capita income and the highest unemployment rates are labeled as distressed. Each regional commission has declared that nearly every county in Mississippi is distressed, including 66% of the counties in my district. I understand that 40% of the funds under each commission must go to distressed counties. Can each of you just kind of elaborate a little bit on a plan to prioritize funds to assist counties in Mississippi and in my district? And let's start with the DRA.
Sure. As you mentioned, we each year do an analysis to determine which counties or parishes are distressed in our communities. Once we do that, we have two primary investment tools. One tool is where we work with our governors and our designees and our local development districts and identifying potential projects or opportunities to invest. And then we have another fund that's our community infrastructure fund that's really focused on basic public infrastructure. So we really work hand in hand with our local development districts because we are part of our boots on the ground in a sense, in working, talking to local government, helping and supporting project development in terms of projects that are come to us. Statutorily, a certain percentage of our funding do have to go into distressed communities. In addition to, we focus on areas what we consider isolated areas of distress because you do have some communities or counties or parishes that may be non-distressed, but you have isolated areas of distress or poverty. So in addition to working with our local development districts, our agency, ourselves, we do a lot of direct outreach by being present, showing up, meeting with local mayor associations, supervisor associations, so all the types of things to make sure that our programmatic options are in front of particularly our distressed communities to maximize our investment at DRA.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My time's about up. I yield back. Thank you all again for being here today.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair now recognizes gentlelady, Ms. Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Manchin, we must help ensure that federal dollars for infrastructure projects flow through the local community. Throughout my service in Congress, I have worked to increase workforce development opportunities for District of Columbia residents whom I represent. After I first secured funding for the Department of Homeland Security headquarters consolidation in 2009, I worked to establish the Opportunities Center at St. Elizabeth's to help DC residents and small businesses, including minority-owned and women-owned businesses, procure jobs, apprenticeships, and contracts for the headquarters consolidation and other federal projects. The Opportunities Center also offers resume writing workshops, job postings, 8A small business training, and community outreach. Furthermore, I was proud to stand with Secretary Buttigieg in front of DC's own Frederick Douglass Memorial Bridge to announce the reinstatement of the Department of Transportation's Local Hiring Initiative pilot program, now permitted by the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Through local hire, we can revitalize local communities, of course, and provide meaningful jobs. Ms. Manchin, in your testimony, you describe how the new Appalachian Regional Initiative for Stronger Economies, which is funded by the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, supports large multi-use collaborative projects, such as transitions to electric vehicles, something I've been working hard on, and green manufacturing. Large-scale projects such as these can generate new, good-paying jobs for local residents. What are the workforce development efforts, Ms. Manchin, including skills training, recruitment, and job placement that will help residents take advantage of jobs created by the new initiative?
Thank you. One of the things that you find throughout the Appalachian region, as with all of our commissions, is that we have academic institutions throughout our regions. And so one of the great assets, I think, in the Appalachian regions are our community colleges, which have become really the engines for training for industry that is coming in. The automotive industry that is coming back, the energy industry, hydropower, the agriculture that is returning to our areas. We're finding that our community colleges are becoming the major engines for workforce training, not only for students out of high school, but workers that have been displaced by their former work can go back and be retrained into these jobs and stay in the area in which they live. They can commute. So this is one of the most effective. Education becomes the foundation for economic development, for growth, for vitality within a community. And so, and certainly then that can lead into a four-year degree or more. But community colleges are really the advocate and the lead instrument for training for the industry that is in our area and that is coming into our area.
Thank you very much, Ms. Manchin, and I yield back.
Chair thanks the gentlelady. The chair now recognizes Minister Edwards. Oh, correction, Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all commissioners for the incredible work that you do. Dr. Wiggins, in your testimony, you mentioned the commission's role in the CIF. I'm sure that you and your staff have been working with federal, state, and local officials on the massive flood insurance issues that the Gulf Coast is facing. Can you share what steps your office has taken to combat the risk of flood?
Well, our community infrastructure fund does support investments in flood control projects and other basic public infrastructure. And we actually do tend to see a lot of those requests come from Louisiana, and particularly southern Louisiana. So we actively work again with these local development districts, our commissions, and helping to identify project support. In addition, we've actually spent time in communities. I mentioned the Mayor's Association meetings, the Municipal Association meetings, as an opportunity for our local elected officials to hear for us. And I'll lift up at this time, too, partnership, because an important part of our work is not just us as a commission going at this work alone. We actually do work with our other federal partners closely in trying to figure out how we can support our regions that we serve. We work with state government, we work with the local development districts as well, in addition with local government. So a lot of our work to address those issues around flood control projects is really based on the local needs, but making sure that local government understand that we can be a resource, a partnering resource as they're looking to address those issues around flood.
And we appreciate that. As you know, Risk Rating 2.0 is a major, major issue. It is literally pricing people out of the market of being able to either become a homeowner or maintain home ownership in homes that they have paid for. And now, God forbid, with the rising costs of insurance, who would have ever thought that that could be a prohibitive factor in people maintaining their homes? What training programs does the DRA offer? Can you speak to any job training fields that promote environmental sustainability?
Sure. Just recently, as a matter of fact, through our Delta Workforce Program, we awarded a partnership grant to Southern University that included a partnership with other local development districts in Baton Rouge. They actually do work around sustainable energy development. And so that's a prime example of, I think, some of the type of projects we're investing in that gets towards climate sustainability, resiliency. But again, our strategic goals, our regional development plan helps put an eye towards the type of investments we do. I'll highlight that in those plans, it's not a plan that is developed only by DRA input. We actually went out and talked to stakeholders across our 8-state region to help develop that plan, to help guide those investments. And so work around sustainable energy is one that we continue to see and get more requests for. And we'll continue to work with our local stakeholders and making sure we're doing good quality investments that's giving us a good return on that investment in terms of impact as well.
As you know, in Louisiana District 2, which is my congressional district, I represent the largest compilation of petrochemical plants in the river parishes, plants that are nestled between communities. So obviously, we have to consistently find ways to make sure that we have sustainability and environmental justice in those areas. So thank you for your efforts. Dr. Reed, I'd like to congratulate you once again on your post to the SCRC. Thank you for coming today to brief our subcommittee on your work over the past 22 months. I have two questions. What has been your biggest win to date, and how will the State Economic and Infrastructure Grant help you and your agency in carrying out your mission?
Thank you for the question. Biggest win to date is the establishment of a relationship with the states. It is a federal-state partnership, and in order for us to do any of the work that we have been charged to do, that relationship has to be solid. So I am really proud of the work that we have done and look forward to the relationship that we will have with the governors and the governor's alternates and getting everything established there. Second to that would be the 5-year strategic plan that sets the tone for where we are going and a map to where we need to be in the next 5 years. So to that question. Your second question was about the economic and infrastructure grants?
Yes.
Okay. I am extremely proud of the interest and the number of pre-applications that have come through. 363 pre-applications are being evaluated right now. $119 million. While we only have 20 to grant away, but to know that that interest is there and the projects are broad. They run from infrastructure to health access to housing access. They run the gamut. So we're very proud of the diversity that those grants have shown. I want to also point out we're statutorily bound. 40% of the funds are to be spent on infrastructure, and 50% of those funds are to be spent in distressed counties. So those are the challenges that we have when we're awarding those grant funds.
Thank you very much, and that's demonstrative. My time is up, so thank you very much for your leniency, Mr. Chairman. But I will say in closing, this is demonstrative of the need that's out there, the great work that you're doing is showing, and the plethora of people that are attempting to apply talks about the real need. And we talk about matrix. It was offered a question earlier. The matrix is people are showing up saying they have need, and thank God we have resources now to be able to address them. So congratulations, and thank you all for the great work that you do.
Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Garamendi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Witnesses, thank all of you. Appreciate the opportunity to engage with you. Some of my questions have been answered in the previous discussions by the members, but I want to really begin to focus in on the critical pieces of legislation that are now law. The Infrastructure Jobs Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, and just generally how in each of your commissions you are able to or unable to access that money to bring that to bear in the problems that you are attempting or you are responsible to address. So, Mrs. Manchin, if you would care to start.
Well, thank you. Yes, the increased funding that came out of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, also the RFA, made a big increased certainly the funding that came to us. And where you're given more, one of the initiatives that we brought forth was the ARISE, which is a multi-state. What I noticed that in our 13 states, they were writing and doing great projects. But we're not the 13 states of Appalachia. We're the Appalachian Regional Commission. And so with being able to offer a larger grant, the encouragement was that states need to work together, that if we lift up our region, then all of our states will do better. So this increased funding in the Appalachian region, I think, has started an impact of states working together, how they can create bigger projects, which then impact and are much more transformative. The hydrogen hub, one of the placements now will certainly impact Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia. It will impact that region, not only in jobs that will come there, training, but subsidiary jobs that will come into the region. And so I think that our governors and our program managers are beginning to realize that by sharing ideas and growth, and certainly using our academic institutions between our states, will certainly greatly impact and increase the abilities of our region to grow and gain parity.
Thank you. Mr. Wiggins.
Well, with our additional funding, we did a couple of things. One, we leveraged the funding into existing programs. So for example, I talked earlier about our Community Infrastructure Fund. Just this week, we were looking at the amount of requests that we have. So for example, we have about $29 million to spend in that particular fund, but we received $46 million of good quality requests. So not just the total number of applications, but projects that are eligible, good quality projects. And so we've been able to leverage the additional funding to go further in those types of programs that we have. The other thing that we did, what we've noticed is there's been a real sort of challenge, but we view it as an opportunity around capacity building in a region. Again, that's part of our regional development plan that was approved by our governors. So two investments that we've leveraged with the additional funding is one, a capacity building grant to our local development districts. We hear throughout our region, through our local governments, about the help we need. So we've really been focused on investments in capacity and leveraging our existing programs.
Thank you. I'm not sure we're going to have enough time to go all the way down, so briefly with the remaining three.
I would just simply echo some of the same improvements we've made to our programs as our peers have, making larger award size, incentivizing partnerships, looking at the fact that many rural communities have challenges assembling multiple funding sources to make these projects possible. So we've increased some award thresholds to try to make those projects happen quicker and more expediently.
Ms. Reed?
Thank you. Past appropriations leading up to my appointment added to the $5 million for IIJA, all folded into the $20 million that we are using for our current grant cycle.
Mr. Boyle?
Thank you, Congressman Garamendi. It's good to see you again. Briefly, Mr. Chair, if I can, from our IIJA funds, directly to your point on the IG, I'm taking 0.5% of that money to make sure he can do the work that he needs to do. Your point's well taken. I know that was an issue in the past, and I'm doing my best to address it. What we're doing is we devised a 5-year spend plan for our funds to make sure all of those monies are available in the out years for our communities. Our funds may be used as non-federal match. We want that available down the road if other communities get big grants from other programs, but they don't have the match available at the local level. We're doing a lot of technical assistance to provide capacity building and grant applications, and also doing planning, engineering, and design work that other federal agencies can't fund in order to get projects to a fundable stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My time having expired, but my question's not. I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. The gentleman does yield back. Are there any further questions from any of the members who have not been recognized? I don't see any. So I would like to say I would like to continue the hearing. However, there are other pressing needs apparently that require my attendance and our attendance. So I hope the trip was worthwhile for you. It was worthwhile for us in having your attendance. And while sometimes these can seem stressful, none of us has any personal animosity with any of you. We believe that you are hoping for the best things in your communities and working towards that. And I think our collective job is to make sure that we are doing it as effectively and as efficiently as we can within the scope of all of the federal government. And so with that concludes the hearing for today. And I'd like to thank each of you for your testimony, and this committee stands adjourned.